You're listening to the Perth Property Show, Australia's only weekly property podcast by West Australian experts for West Australian listeners. Catch your latest episode every Monday at 7 a.m.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Perth Property Show. My name's Trent Fleskins, your host as always. Welcome to episode 296, and the reason I bring that up today is we are harking back with the number one agent of the Rossmoyne and Shelley area. We're going to chat about Riverton as well. It's Zac Addenbrooke from Pulse Property Group. Mate, you were here in episode 9.
Trent, thanks for having me again.
It's been 5 years, pretty much, between stumps, and a lot has gone under the bridge in the Perth property market, and specifically Riverton, Shelley, Rossmoyne. We've seen that part of the world really start to kick on in prices and move in demographics a little bit too, just as a function of the price point. It's becoming quite unaffordable in a lot of the pockets that you sell in. So obviously we'd like to profile that, see if there's any opportunities still left in any of the housing types for young people to get into the market, let alone investors or developers. But the story of the area around Canning River really has followed that of most of Perth in the last few years, hasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, it's been a good journey to watch since I was last here. Definitely has changed as far as price points. The demographics are relatively similar, but I'll probably say younger families coming through with the help of what we'd call the banks of mum and dad.
I saw a bit of guarantor finance happening.
It is, yes, and it's typically, which is probably a bit of a testament to the suburbs, kids who have grown up there, they've gone off, professionals now looking to start families, and mum and dad want them to come back into the area, given it's done so well for them, and said, look, we'll help you out a bit, top you up so you can find something.
It seems like a reality really for people who are in their 20s, 30s to be able to afford a property. We saw a transaction in Riverton on a development we did just recently where the front triplex unit, we initially did that FISO at about 670 grand 3 years ago, just sold for $1.07 million. A triplex unit in Riverton.
That's right.
Who would have thought, Zach?
Look, the appetite, I think, especially for these younger families, is wanting to find something that is easy to move into. So you new or build or recently renovated, we've definitely seen a bit of a lag of those wanting to buy something with older bones and renovate. Having said that, that's probably where a lot of opportunity lies at the moment for
that's
families.
Pretty much the same message we got from Lachlan Delahunty last week, who have said that is where a lot of people are paying overs for right now. They're paying overs for the renovated house.
Yes.
They're not as much going for the house that has a little bit of work to do, which he said was the opportunity.
Exactly right. And for whatever reason, actually, we've seen a bit of a trend over the last 12 to 18 months of those older homes come to the market. That's probably been the mainstay of products coming into Rossmoyne and Shelley. So whilst the demand isn't as high as those that are ready to move into, I've got to admit, and again, probably a testament to the keenness of buyers wanting to move into Rossmoyne and Shelley, there's still really great demand for those older homes and people wanting to find the worst home on the best street, which is always the way.
Now, I would implore everyone to go have a listen to episode 9 to get some real context about the area. If you haven't got a lot of context yourself on Rossmoyne, Shelley and Riverton, but if you can for a couple of minutes, give us a bit of a characterization, price points, demographics, why people are so interested in the area, school zones, all those sort of things. Can you sell these suburbs to us? Give us your best shot.
Look, the price points about 5 years ago, the median price for Shelley was sitting around that $900,000 mark, currently sits around 1.4. And then for Rossmoyne, it was sitting around that 1.1, and it's a similar trend. It's now currently sitting at that $1.6 million mark for the median price.
So just bang, $500,000, both have gone up.
Topped them up, that's exactly right. As far as the attraction for both suburbs, school's always a big pulling factor. It's a public school, Rossmoyne High School, and it's consistently one of the best in the state. So not having to pay those private school fees, $20,000 a year or whatever it may be, that's a big attraction for a lot of families. But the last 2 years in particular, I would say it's the seclusion or exclusivity of the suburb itself, meaning that it doesn't have any neighbouring suburbs. It's cut off by Leach Highway on the south side of Rossmoyne and Shelley, and on the north side and east-west boundaries, it's river. It's your riverside lifestyle. So
it's a bit of an enclave, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It's your, in a way, gated community without the gates.
You're not driving through, especially Shelley and Rossmoyne, unless you're supposed to be there, right?
Correct.
You're just driving straight past on Leach.
Your local traffic, that's exactly right. So we've seen a big influx of homeowners from Mount Pleasant specifically, or people who were looking in Mount Pleasant now coming across the river to Rossmoyne and Shelley for that exact reason. So,
is it a price point thing, or is it they're a bit turned off by all the apartments? Is it downsizing?
Yeah, exactly right. So it's families mainly who have come to me with this feedback of Mount Pleasant turning into a bit of a through suburb. So a lot of external traffic going from Leach Highway to Canning Highway. They're smaller blocks typically in Mount Pleasant compared to Rossmoyne. Rossmoyne, your standard blocks are around about 850 square metres. So it's that bigger family block, that quiet street lifestyle, which is the majority of Rossmoyne and Shelley. And because they've got the budget over there, it fits in quite well with Rossmoyne and Shelley as well. So we've seen a big influx of those types of buyers coming this way.
It's a bit of a sidestep for them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Historically, I think Applecross and Mount Pleasant, before we saw the density coming into the area, probably had a very similar character to Rossmoyne and Shelley. That's obviously transforming with the Canning Bridge precinct plan over the last decade, I think for the better in a lot of parts, but it obviously does dislocate some people, doesn't suit their lifestyle, and they go, well,
that's right.
Where can we replicate this? Well, I think Rossmoyne and Shelley is that Applecross, Adderdale, Applecross, Mount Pleasant lifestyle. And I would also go as far as suggesting I don't really see that changing much. I think, think about the city of Canning, they're probably not putting the density in these suburbs. Going forward, it's probably going to a Riverton if it is going to go that far.
Yes, the last rezoning that the city of Canning did for Rossmoyne and Shelley, it was really just a handful of very small streets adjacent to Leach Highway that they've increased for higher density, but they haven't really touched anything in a suburb or riverfront. So, and I don't see that changing either.
There's not really an activity centre in those two suburbs, right? That would lead to that density, which some would say is a positive, right? It keeps it very, very quiet. But also, you do have to drive to get to the local shops.
Yes, that's right. So Rossmoyne has a hub itself where you've got your IGA, a couple of restaurants, beautiful cafe, pizzeria, that sort of thing. Nice little community hub. And Shelley has the same, but it is a bit more commercial, that hub. So again, another great cafe, which I must admit I spend probably too much time at. They do great coffee. But then you've got your doctor's facilities, physio, chiro, that sort of stuff.
If you want to go do a proper shop, though, no one's coming to Rossmoyne or Shelley.
That's right. Yeah, they probably head to Riverton, Stocklands over on High Road. So again, keeps that kind of traffic out of the suburb and keeps it nice and quiet.
In the last couple of weeks, we profiled the northern beaches, which is a similar price point, actually, that low to mid 1 millions for a lot of the properties now around Aluka, Callaroo, Burns Beach. It's interesting, similar price points. One thing that I noted, which probably lends to the housing product, the quality, the size of these houses, the age of these houses. The rents are massive up there. We're paying over $1,000 a week for a lot of these houses on median. We're paying over $1,000 a week in Aluka, $1,300 to be specific. It's interesting to note that of the rental properties in Rossmoyne and Shelley specifically, nearly half that. Is that really talking to the characterisation of which properties are being rented, maybe lower quality, older stock, versus the much more mansion-like properties that we see along Riverton Drive? These properties are probably owner-occupied.
Yeah, exactly right. Again, the majority of homes that have been rented out through probably Rossmoyne specifically, more so than Shelley, has been those older homes on bigger blocks. So we've seen a bit more appetite from buyers over the last 12 months where they want to buy the older home to knock down and build in the next year or two, but whilst they do plans, rent out that 60s or 1970s 3x1 for $550, maybe $600 a week, just for a year or two, whilst they get their ducks in a row to build a family home. Whereas Shelley is more so, we're moving or upsizing within the suburbs, quite common. We'll rent out our 3x2, 4x2, 80s, 90s build for a bit more.
Would you suggest that the land content is probably making up a lot more of the price there in Rossmoyne than probably what we're talking about in Aluka, Burns Beach? That lends to why the rental is probably not matching.
That's exactly right.
Now, one thing that a lot of people will notice when they go look at their REWA stats is that Shelley's price point seems to really have popped in the last year, whereas Rossmoyne sitting at about 14.5%. Shelley double that. What's going on there is that I always talk to a bit of bias there in the subset of properties year to year. It doesn't really make sense to me that we would see such a differential between the two suburbs. What's your take?
Over the last 12 months on REWA statistics, Shelley has grown 37%. Now, I try and provide a bit of context to that whenever someone does bring that up. And whilst it's great on paper, especially for the homeowners in the area, lovely to see. But Shelley's such a unique suburb like Rossmoyne, where on one side you've got riverfront properties, luxury properties selling $4.5 million. On the other side you've got Leach Highway properties, which is villas, some 2x1s that are selling at $415, $420, $430K. Affordable product, exactly right. So that statistic really depends on what has sold in the last 12 months compared to the 12 months prior to that. We had a big run of a lot of riverfront properties sell in the last 12 months compared to 24 months ago. So it compares those two sets of data. If it was the inverse, we didn't have many riverfront properties selling in the last 12 months compared to that prior, then it would be the opposite. It would say Shelley's declined, which in this market, from all the media and everything that's going throughout the Perth metro area, would be
laughable. We know that Shelley is not declining in value, right? So it is a really good case study there to demonstrate that in this case, 37%, it might not actually be 37%. It might be somewhere closer to your 15, 20% house on house.
Yeah, correct. It's probably closer to your 20, 21, 22% in reality. And Rossmoyne would be more than the 14 advertised as well. But again, that's had a bit of a set of those blocks of land selling at close to Leach Highway or the newer builds on 350 square metres, which is a new product to Rossmoyne. Interestingly enough, as I mentioned earlier, your main block in Rossmoyne is going to be about 850 square metres, but with that minor zoning changes along Leach Highway that I just referenced, we're starting to find that two-storey homes, new builds are coming on the market because the block's been developed and there's just no products like that or have ever been like that in Rossmoyne. So it's brand new and it's bringing in quite a lot of buyers who never thought they could afford to live in Rossmoyne, and now they're going, look, we actually get a brand new home, we get that lifestyle we want, the new build, it's on an affordable price point. Whilst we don't have the block size we'd like, it's going to tick our boxes for our kids going through just high school or primary school and high school.
Let's segue into that development space right now. People who are listening along thinking, hey, is there an opportunity for me to maybe do a R20 house behind a house split or a side-by-side split, which we've seen a lot of it in Salter Point, for example, across the water there. Interesting dynamics between, for example, your Riverton, your Shelley and your Rossmoyne. Riverton, I think, got most of the development opportunity in the rezoning. Mm-hmm. We've seen a bit of it, as we spoke to before. Quite a lot of properties there in the R25, R40 space on 800 to 1,000 square metres that we've certainly started to see a lot of development coming through for the better, I think. Certainly closer to the High Road commercial precinct there. And land rates getting into the mid to high 1,000s per square metre in somewhere like Riverton. Then I think you step to Shelley. Similar prospect, a number of blocks there, larger size, but we're talking R20. So these guys are developing off of lower density but higher blocks, so still able to start getting some density out. And then Rossmoyne doesn't seem to have anywhere near the amount of development. Can you characterise why this is happening? Is it block sizes? Is it zoning? What zoning are we talking about between the three?
Rossmoyne and Shelley predominantly is R20. So you're going to need that 900 square metre block, 855 if you get that 5% variance, which is quite common. Shelley, when it was gazetted back in the 60s, a lot of those blocks were 1,012, 1,200 square metres or sort of your worst case 900. So they've been that right size for quite a long time. Over the last 8 years, as zoning has changed, they've come into that bracket and people have picked that up and subdivided. So your average block in Shelley now could be between 500 to 600. Whereas Rossmoyne, when all those blocks were created, there's probably about 10 streets in particular that all sit 5 square metres short of having subdivision potential. There's a bit of a joke throughout the community of neighbours trying to buy each other's letterboxes so they can have that extra 5 square metres to have subdivision potential, but it's just not the case. So Rossmoyne, which is why I think one of the main reasons it holds a higher value, is because they're typically bigger blocks and they can't be subdivided.
Of course. And then one thing that the statistics can't really cater for is the changing profile of houses in a suburb, right? That's how you split every property in Shelley up overnight. Yeah. Well, clearly the median value of these properties just reduces. It's interesting to note most of the properties on Barbican, on Corbel, Mosaic, Tribute Street West, at least half on every street seem to have been subdivided into 3 or 4 units over the years.
They were the main targets of the city of Canning. So that hub I referred to in Shelley sits on Tribute Street. So they actually there's a pocket of Tribute Street that's R30, and then there's a pocket of Corbell that's R25, which is quite unique to Shelley and Rossmoyne as a whole. That's obviously facilitated a lot of development. Yeah, there's still a lot of blocks throughout Shelley in particular that are sitting on that 1,000 or 900 square metre block plus. And the reality is, those owners that have bought into the suburb in the 60s and 70s, they haven't moved. That's typical of Rossmoyne and Shelley. We have so many people that just love the lifestyle in there. Me in particular, having grown up there and live there now, they don't want to move. And as much as I talk to a lot of these homeowners wanting to update them on the value of their homes, a lot of them come back to me, and I excuse the bluntness to the listeners out there, but they will tell me, no, Zach, we're not selling. We're going to go out in the box. So they just love it. And that's why there's those larger blocks still hanging around and are highly sought after.
Well, what I think that development does, at least, is, and this is what redevelopment does in terms of median density around these suburbs, is it's also going to provide those same homeowners an option when they do need to downsize and stay within the suburb. And this is a perfect example, somewhere like Shelley. With Rossmoyne next door, they obviously substitutable products here that people can cycle their whole life through, hopefully. First homeowner product close to Leach Highway in the old unit, and then work their way up to the family house, and they've got themselves a townhouse option to downsize into along the way as well. It seems like a good mix circulating through these 3 suburbs.
Yes, it is. There's a lot of the downsizers who come to the market to sell want to buy back into the suburb, whether it's Rossmoyne and Shelley, and it's all interchangeable, which is quite nice.
Let's talk to the high-end people. Love stories about the sexy big mansions. You mentioned a price point of $4.5 million. Is that where we're capping out in Rossmoyne?
Yes and no.
Are there houses that are probably worth a lot more than that?
There are. The record for Shelley, if I can toot my own horn, typical real estate agent, about 2 years ago, I sold a property on the waterfront in Shelley for $4.4 million. Now, that set the record for the suburb of both Shelley and Rossmoyne.
Interesting, given Rossmoyne should be the more expensive suburb.
Correct, that's right. But this home was one of a kind. Triple Z Zorsey home, over 1,000 square metres, had all the bells and whistles. It was fantastic. It was a bit of a journey to get to that price point, but we got there in the end, which was fantastic for everyone involved. But Rossmoyne hasn't really had that calibre of home come up, to be honest. There was a block of about 5,000 square metres sold back in 2012, I think it was, for about 4.6. Other than that, they hover between 3 to 4, Rossmoyne. There have been a couple of homes come on the market recently in Shelley, chasing that 5.5.
So what's going on here? Are we paying for house here, and you just don't have the same house content in some of these riverfront properties in Rossmoyne, a bit older maybe, and Shelley's got a bit newer, sexier houses? How is it happening here that Shelley is getting these peak price points and Rossmoyne is not seeing it? Is it an opportunity that we should be looking at?
I think so. But to be honest, it's just those that live on the riverfront that are in those types of homes, they build on the riverfront in Rossmoyne and stay there indefinitely, basically. It's the families there. Even after the kids are gone, they're typically designed for later life. So we just haven't seen those types of products come to the market. That's simply all it is.
It makes sense. The lifestyle, I've been to a few friends' houses that do front the water on Rossmoyne, and it's a phenomenal lifestyle.
It's hard to let go.
The sunset's probably one of the best in Perth because you've got this skyline and then you've got the sunset behind the city.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah, the majority of Riverton Drive there has city views or your sunset views. It's fantastic.
Okay, so let's cap this off by recapping where our median house prices are.
1.4 for Shelley, 1.6 for Rossmoyne.
If you had that money in your pocket, Zach, today, cash, where would you be buying? What would it be?
At the moment, I would probably look at those older homes, right location, but subdivisible blocks. So it's probably your rundown 3x1, hopefully neat and tidy enough to rent out for a year or two and go through that development process, mainly because those will probably hover around that 1.4 to 1.6, depending on your frontage and location within the suburb. We've seen a real appetite of buyers wanting to buy those 450, 500 square metre blocks all of a sudden. If we'd sat down 12 months ago, I would have told you I haven't had a call for a block of land in 2 years.
I think that's a theme across the state, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. But all of a sudden, this year in particular, the phone's ringing again of buyers wanting to purchase blocks to build on, and it's that 450, 500, so it accommodates them enough in their budget to get the home they want. Now, a 450 square metre block, again, the last time we were talking, was probably going to run you back around $650,000-$700,000. At the moment, it's sitting probably around $900,000 to $1 million to purchase that 450 square metre vacant block.
People's jaws just hit the floor. But I can verify that. We've done a lot of work together and recently in this area, having a look at the numbers, and it's pretty obvious that you want to buy a 400-500 square metre block of land in Rossmoyne, which is very rare in the first place.
Yes.
You're putting $1 million down, and then you got to build your house.
You do. So, and look, and for the first time in probably a while as well, if you're spending your $800-900 million for the build on top of your block purchase, you're actually quite safe, because for Rossmoyne specifically, you're probably going to get a really good frontage to build on for your half of block. Great streets. It's a sought after location, and over the last probably 2 to 3 years, that $2 million mark has no longer been a barrier for inner suburb. It was usually reserved for that riverfront property, $2 million and above, but over the last 2 years, we've been selling those family homes on 450, 500 square metre blocks, 2-storey, enough room for a backyard, pool, good quality, at that $1.8 to $2.2 million mark. So it's giving people peace of mind.
And that's probably why we're starting to see that race back to house and land, to buying your own piece of land, building again. People who are in the established market have, I think, just lost a lot of hope. They're frustrated. They're having to compromise on so many things now just to access the market, and they sit back for a second and go, hang on, this isn't my first home. I'm not obliged to move out right now. Timing is probably not the big stress for me. It's probably just moving to the next chapter of my life and knowing it's going to happen.
That's
right. So if I'm compromising so much on X, Y, Z, and I'm getting screwed on price here just to be down the road in a house that's 40 years old, well, hang on, why don't I just have a look for a second at what the build price is and whether that actually computes? And you're right, in most suburbs now, we're finally getting to that parity again of replacement cost, where the established market is actually meeting, if not in some suburbs, exceeding replacement cost now. And the idea, the prospect of building on your own piece of land, even in brownfield suburbs, is starting to actually look like it's making a bit of sense now, even if it's just for having a bit of control about what you are actually going to be moving into.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the clients that are looking down that path now sort of look at the worst scenario with me, and I sort of say to them, look, worst case scenario, you build the home and you've got to go, look, we've got to put it on the market now for whatever reason. As we said earlier, the demand is really coming through for those newer products, and people are paying
There's just
a
not
premium.
a lot for it. There's just not a lot around.
Yeah, exactly right.
And again, that's on today's numbers. If we are fairly confident in the strength of Perth's market broadly, we would therefore, by extension, be confident in Rossmoyne, Shelley, Riverton area, a very, very strong blue chip area in Perth. Excessive prices, especially for well-to-dos. You would like to think that by the end of this build, which we're thinking is a year and a half, 2 years from now, you probably are pretty insulated in that price point.
Yes. Yeah, exactly right.
Zac, I reckon that's a great way to leave it. For all those out there who are losing hope, have a look at the building side, add some new product to the area, and there certainly is an opportunity if you want to go full shebang. Head to Shelley, find yourself a development block, build yourself a house at the front, subdivide the land at the back, subsidise the cost a little bit yourself.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Zac. Zac Addenbrooke from Pulse Property Group. Appreciate your time, mate.
Thanks, Trent, as always.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Perth Property Show. If you've only just joined the conversation, you can catch up by heading over to our website, perthpropertyshow.com.au, subscribing to the podcast, or joining our Facebook page. Don't forget to tune in next Monday at 7 a.m. for more expert insights, local analysis, and suburb spotlights. Happy hunting!